What's up, you beauties? Welcome to another HW exclusive. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, and I'm joined by the one and only Jim Biringer, Devils Insider. We're going to talk some Sheldon Keefe today. Jim, not the season that I think New Jerseyites, New Jerseyans expected out of the Devils this year, and maybe it ended up being for a good reason here, as Lindy Ruff was let go and Sheldon Keefe's brought in. Who better to talk New Jersey Devils hockey than you? So, I mean, let's kind of jump right in here, man. Sheldon Keefe, initial thoughts.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for having me on here today. Appreciate it. Yeah, initial thoughts, great hire by New Jersey Devils, right? So you think about it, the Devils fire Lindy Ruff. They have Travis Green as their interim coach, and things progressed the right way. But they just didn't have the season that they wanted, and you could point into roster construction, and we may talk about that a little later on, and the goaltending and all that. But you look at what Sheldon Keefe's done over the last 5 years, right? He's been in a hockey hotbed, and no disrespect to Montreal, but Toronto's a hockey hotbed. He's been there pretty much with the Marlies too. So think about it, 8 years there coaching in Toronto. Over the last 5 years, he's had the best winning percentage at .622. He's taken the Maple Leafs to the playoffs every year. They won one round. I get it. I understand the playoff record. But the guy's a good communicator. He understands how to hold guys accountable, especially with lineup changes. And I think that's something the Devils need. If you saw last year and watched Maple Leafs games, you notice a certain captain, John Tavares, was not playing on the second line that much. He's on the third line. So he understands how to talk to guys. He understands how to use the analytics, but he knows how to hold guys accountable. And that's something Tom Fitzgerald was looking for when they were looking for a head coach. When their season ended, I know they want to be playing now. But when Sheldon Keefe became available, he jumped right to the top of the list, right? Yeah, Jay Woodcroft, Todd McClellan, Craig Berube, the usual suspects were there. But once Keefe became available, he jumped to the list. And as I stated Monday night, there was a verbal agreement in place, but they just had to work out some details. And it was always Keefe's job if he wanted it. Again, he needed to reset, recharge. And he had a classy video for people in Toronto. And I think this is exactly the kind of coach the Devils were looking for, where you can grow with the team. He's young enough where he can grow with this team. I think Tom McClellan is more of a guy that if you're in win now, if you need to win a Stanley Cup, you're right there. Keefe, and he's got the talent, right? You look at this roster and you could say to yourself, New Jersey's better positioned and has more depth than the Toronto Maple Leafs done. And look what Sheldon Keefe did in Toronto. He did more with less there. Let's see what he does with a roster like this.
Great points, and you're kind of getting me excited, and I'm not a Devils fan, You made great points. So one of my questions was going to be, what does this hire signify to Devils fans? And one of the points you made there was this is a coach that can grow with the team, which I thought was a great point by you. But let me ask you the question anyway. What does the hire signify to you and to Devils fans?
There's expectations now. There's an expectation for this team to win and to be back in a position that they were in a couple of years ago. Now, do we all think that they're a 112-point team? No, but they're not this bad, right? And I think you're going to get a coach in Keefe who understands the game and who's learned, again, coaching in Toronto, microscope everywhere. Now the microscope's not going to be right on you. But again, one of the big things is there's expectations. He is motivated, and that's the thing, right? There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be motivated this year. Keefe didn't like how he got let go in Toronto, right? And the Devils stepped up to pay him. There's going to be a lot of players on that roster. Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Jack Hughes. Guys are going to be motivated to win, and Tom Fitzgerald is motivated to get him a complete roster. And that's one of the things you didn't see last year. But again, Lindy Ruff is also set in his ways and playing certain guys. But to be fair, Tom Fitzgerald didn't give him the tools in the toolbox. And I think that's the one thing that he's going to do for Sheldon Keefe is give him the tools in the toolbox to be successful. And I was talking with somebody today, and one of the big things Keefe told Fitzgerald is before taking the job is you better get me a number one goaltender.
Wow. And I mean, if you watch the Devils this year, they should have been probably a playoff team, even as is. They just were missing the goaltending piece. And as Flyers fans know, you kind of need a goalie,
Yeah.
So, all right, so that's good stuff there, encouraging stuff if you're a Devils fan. And so let me ask you personally, are you satisfied with the hire? Do you believe that Sheldon Keefe is the right man for the job right now in New Jersey?
Look, there were two guys I was looking at. Craig Berube for me was the ideal fit for the Devils, just because he won Stanley Cup with St. Louis Blues. He knows how to be aggressive with players. He knows how to change systems. He understands defensive hockey. But I'm okay with Sheldon Keefe, right? And I think that was the other guy I wanted. Jay Woodcroft, I wasn't sure too much about. Same with McLennan. I just didn't think McLennan, with the roster that they have, I just didn't think he was the perfect fit for them. So Berube or Keefe, and I'm fine with Keefe as a fan. I'm fine with Keefe. I think, again, he's going to be motivated. He's saying all the right things. Again, he's coming to a team that has a lot to offer, right? The Devils have a lot to offer. Look, Toronto was built around a core four. New Jersey's got a better defense, maybe more depth up front. And if they can get a goaltender, I've talked about this for a year now. If they could get a goaltender, and you even said it, maybe if they make the Jake Allen move sooner, maybe they add a defenseman when Dougie Hamilton goes down. This team was a playoff team, especially the way the Eastern Conference was so wild for that wild card. If they could have strung 6-7 wins together, this team could have made the playoffs. But what Sheldon Keefe has done is had the Maple Leafs there every year, third place or better. I mean, that's the expectation now, is that I think the Devils should be competing for the top 3 in the division, especially with this coach. And again, the pieces are in place there, and maybe add some more. And I think it's a great hire for New Jersey. I think you have a great hockey mind there too.
Yeah. And I've said many times, I think already that, this is, I think, a great hire for New Jersey. Yeah, like Keefe, he had an opportunity to grow with the core in Toronto, right? But that market, it almost just became unfair for him. I mean, he couldn't get out of the first round, so there are failures there, and I want to ask you about that. But the New Jersey team sort of seems like a good fit for him. He's got a young star in Jack Hughes, captain in Nico Hischier. The leadership group's kind of already been established. You said it. This is a team that he can grow with. And I think the Devils, I think a lot of people expected them to be, a force in the Metro. I think we're going to end up seeing that in pretty short order here. So let me move on and ask you this question here. We talked a lot of positive stuff. Let me ask you this. Do Keefe's failures with the Leafs concern you at all? Toronto seemingly moving on to a tougher, maybe more players type coach in Craig Berube. Do Keefe's shortcomings up in Toronto freak you out at all?
I mean, I think they should. I think, you should be skeptical a little bit, especially playoff success and the adjustments. But I saw something. I saw Sheldon Keefe adjust in games 5 through 7 with the Toronto Maple Leafs this past year. They played a lockdown defensive game. And you always say to yourself, and that was the one thing I said, I was like, well, where was this in games 1 through 4? Because if the Leafs had played that way defensively in games 1 through 4, they're probably in the second round. They probably lose to Florida anyway, but that's besides the point. You say to yourself, okay, he's going to take those lessons that he learned in Toronto. He's going to bring them to New Jersey, and maybe he adjusts sooner. Maybe he gets these guys to play differently right away. He's a good defensive coach, and he's a good coach. Again, he was in Toronto. Expectations are through the roof, right? You're coming to New Jersey. He's motivated. Again, there are shortcomings. They just get to the playoffs all the time, and they can't get out of the first round. And maybe that's the case in New Jersey. Maybe it's not. Maybe he understands how to adjust a little bit. Again, I think the Metro Division's a little different than the Atlantic. Tough, again, the teams in the Metro, they're still tough, but I feel like the Atlantic, man, Boston's tough, Florida physical, Tampa physical, and you have your rivals there too with Toronto. So you're here in the Metro a lot. New Jersey's got Flyers, Rangers, those rivals too. But I think he's going to be able to understand and adapt to hit the players that they have in this roster. Again, you have to be concerned because they only won one playoff series, but he's a good defensive coach, and I think the adjustments and the learning experience, the 5 years there as a head coach, is going to help him in New Jersey with this team.
Well, I could say this as a Flyers fan, I do not like the hire because I think it's a good move for New Jersey. As opposed to a team like Buffalo bringing in Lindy Ruff again. I mean, Yeah, to me, the move in New Jersey never made sense with Ruff. I mean, the how young the team was and whatnot. And you said it, I'm going to keep coming back to it again. This feels like the perfect opportunity for the Devils and for Keefe. And I think if you're a Devils fan, you should be excited for this one. I feel like the way things turned out in Toronto, I mean, it's a pressure cooker city, right? I mean, the pressure gets turned up really quick, and if it seems like they gave Keefe a lot of chances, and unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're a Devils fan, things didn't work out up there. But another great coach in the Metro. I think the Metro is going to be better next year. I think it's going to improve. It's tough to be much worse than it was this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the Metro. Look, every year Metro, I say it. I still think it's one of the toughest divisions, even though it may not look like it sometimes records wise. But these teams have history going back to the old Patrick division with the Rangers, the Islanders, the Flyers, the Devils, the Penguins, Columbus. You throw in there, Washington, Carolina too. I mean, these teams just don't like each other, right? I mean, they just don't like each other. Plain and simple, they don't. And look, the Devils ponied up and paid Sheldon Keefe. That was something they didn't do with Lindy Ruff last time. They settled for Lindy Ruff. I've been told this multiple times. They settled for Lindy Ruff because they didn't want to pay a guy like Laviolette or a guy like Gallant. So they step up. They pay the big money to get a coach, 4-year contract. It's, again, a good hire. Look, I feel like Philly's going to be better. Pittsburgh should be better. I mean, everybody's going to be motivated now to go chase down 2 teams. You're going to want to play better. And it just makes the division better as a whole. I know, like, certain teams are going to be like, oh, Sheldon Keefe and, the Devils are going to get better. It's going to hurt our team. But you know what? It may make your team a better, too, because now we're going to see better games on the ice.
Nah, I like that spin on it, and I'll take that, too. So I didn't catch this before the show, but while you were talking about Keefe there, I noticed your voice of reason in parentheses there. That kind of gave me a little chuckle, but it's true. You are the voice of reason. So, Jim, you have anything you want to promote, man? I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. I know you're a busy guy. It's the day before Memorial Day weekend, and you still found time to come on and join me for a 10-minute, 15-minute episode.
Hey, man, Jim, always a pleasure to be here. High and Wide Radio, always love to be here. Talking hockey is my passion. Check me out on fullpresshockey.com. The latest articles are up there. Check me out at Jim Biringer, Twitter, X, Bird, whatever it's called now. I have no idea. Full Press NHL podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Full Press Hockey podcast on YouTube, and the Final Word on Hockey I do as well. Pretty much everywhere you can find me. Search my name. I probably come up like a million times.
Sure.
But it's just so much fun to cover a sport that you love. I love talking hockey, love being around the game. Devils, my first love, but I love covering the league, love talking about the league. So even if it's not Devils, love to be back on here talking NHL.
We'll have to get you back on, man. One of the best guys around. We're glad to finally get you on. And if real quick for everybody watching, check out hwhockey.net. Maybe we'll get some new followers on there, maybe some Devils fans watching. So yeah, Jim, thanks once again, man. Have a happy and a safe Memorial Day weekend, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yeah, Jim, always a pleasure here, guys. Have a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend. Be safe out there. You as well, buddy.
All right, take care, Jim. Thanks again.
Take it easy. Bye.
There he is, everyone. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jim Biringer. You're not going to find a better guy around. Just wanted to try something different today. A quick recap of Sheldon Keefe being hired by the New Jersey Devils, and there's no one better to get to talk Devils hockey than Jim Biringer. So really nice of Jim to take some time to cover that. So that's going to do it for our second HW exclusive. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. And we'll have to talk soon. Bye-bye.